Teenage mother of a missing child doesn't report her child missing for over a month and never reports her child missing.
What was your impression of Evelyn that day?
She was dirty, and I could smell her across the table.
On February 18th, 2020, Tommy Boswell Sr. called Child Protective Services with a simple but alarming concern. His 15-month-old granddaughter, Evelyn Boswell, was missing. When investigators questioned Evelyn's mother, Megan Boswell, she had a perfectly reasonable explanation for Evelyn's whereabouts. But there was just one problem. It was all a lie. As authorities searched desperately for the little girl, Megan's story changed again and again. Days passed. Leads went cold. And then, the police made a horrifying discovery. Where was Evelyn?
Tonight, Megan Boswell said she wants the person who has her 15-month-old daughter, Evelyn Boswell, to bring her home.
Why did Megan lie? And what really happened to the little girl who was supposed to be safe in her mother's care? February 18th, 2020, started like any other winter day in Sullivan County, Tennessee, until one phone call changed everything. The call was made to Child Protective Services, and it was about a missing child, 15-month-old Evelyn Mae Boswell, who had seemingly vanished without a trace. The caller was Tommy Boswell Sr., Evelyn's grandfather. He hadn't seen his granddaughter since early December 2019. And now, more than 2 months later, he was starting to fear the worst. The following day, February 19th, 2020, the state of Tennessee issued an Amber Alert for Evelyn, hoping to find the little girl. What they didn't know at the time was that this missing child investigation was about to take countless twists and turns, each more disturbing than the last. While authorities waited for the Amber Alert to yield results, they turned to the one person who should have known where Evelyn was, her mother, Megan Boswell. But from the start, something felt off. Megan was one of Tommy Sr.'s 4 children, all of whom were raised in a chaotic, dysfunctional home. And as investigators pressed her for the truth, the habits she had learned over the years came to the surface. Instead of answers, Megan gave the authorities lies. At first, she told investigators that Evelyn had spent the holidays with her biological father, Ethan Perry. Ethan had never really been in Evelyn's life because he had enlisted in the Army shortly after Megan got pregnant, leaving her to raise their daughter on her own. But according to Megan, that had changed over the holidays. She claimed Ethan had gotten some time off work and wanted to spend it with his child. And at first, her story seemed believable. After all, what father wouldn't want to spend the little time he had off work with his daughter? Then came the twist. Megan told officers that Ethan had been acting strangely, and she was growing concerned for Evelyn's safety. She claimed that the last time she spoke to her daughter was on December 26th, and since then, Ethan had refused to answer her calls or respond to her texts. Megan gave the impression that Ethan was trying to keep the child away from her, but investigators quickly discovered that this was nothing but a lie. When police reached out to Ethan to ask about Evelyn, he had no idea what they were talking about. Ethan was still on active duty, miles away in another state, and he hadn't seen or spoken to Evelyn at all during that time. At this point, authorities knew something was terribly wrong. Megan wasn't just withholding information. She was actively deceiving them. The search for Evelyn intensified, and while investigators weren't ready to name a suspect, one thing was clear. All roads led back to Megan. Megan's childhood was anything but stable. Her parents, Tommy Boswell Sr. and Angela Boswell, had a long history of trouble, ranging from domestic violence and criminal activity to heavy drug and alcohol abuse. It was a toxic environment, and Megan grew up right in the middle of it. By 2014, the marriage completely fell apart, ending in a bitter divorce. But that wasn't the end of the chaos. Tommy Sr. and Angela got into a custody battle for their children. During the messy fight, Megan, who was just 17 years old, got pregnant by Ethan Perry. The nature of her relationship with Ethan is unclear, but when he joined the military straight out of high school, Megan was left to deal with the pregnancy on her own. On November 21st, 2018, Megan gave birth to Evelyn Mae Boswell. Shortly after, Megan was forced to move in with her father after her mother landed in jail. Tommy Sr. lived on an 11-acre property known as the Boswell family compound. The compound was a mix of buildings, trailers, and sheds, each belonging to different members of the Boswell family. It was an open-door setup where relatives could come and go as they pleased. Megan and Evelyn were given a trailer of their own, and for a while, life seemed good. Evelyn thrived, just as any child should, and Megan appeared to be a devoted mother. Everyone around them loved the little girl, including Tommy Sr., who, despite being a crappy father to Megan, loved Evelyn very much. It is safe to say that Evelyn was growing up in a better and safer environment than her mother grew up in, but that didn't last long.
Megan Boswell has spoken, and she spoke to the local media because this case began as a missing child.
Megan managed to secure a job at a local restaurant, and soon after, she began dating Hunter Wood, the owner's son. By December 2019, their relationship had progressed so much that Megan decided to leave her trailer home and move into Hunter's house in a different neighborhood. Even after moving out, Megan would return to the trailer now and then to grab her things before heading back to Hunter's house. During this time, Tommy Sr. began to notice something unsettling. Megan was no longer bringing Evelyn with her. Tommy, who was very fond of his granddaughter, started to worry. The little girl he adored was nowhere to be seen, and when he asked Megan where she was, the answers never seemed to add up. On one occasion, when Tommy Sr. asked about Evelyn, Megan told him that Hunter's mom was watching the child so she could focus on work. It sounded reasonable enough, so Tommy didn't think much of it. He had no idea that this was just one of many lies. A few weeks later, just before Christmas, he asked again. This time, Megan had a different story. She said Evelyn was spending the holidays with her father, Ethan, and that they had worked out a custody agreement where they'd take turns caring for the little girl every other week. At first, it actually sounded like good news. Everyone was happy to hear that Ethan was finally stepping up as a dad, and no one had any reason to doubt Megan. Meanwhile, with Evelyn supposedly off with her father, Megan was free to focus on her relationship with Hunter, and the two spent most of the holidays together, without a care in the world.
State and local investigators are teaming up tonight to try to find a 15-month-old little girl from Sullivan County.
By the time January 2020 rolled around, Tommy Sr.'s concern for Evelyn had grown. No one had seen or heard from the little girl in weeks, and he was getting worried. He started to suspect that Ethan was up to something, that maybe he was trying to gain full custody and keep Evelyn away from her family. Over the next few weeks, Tommy called his daughter multiple times to ask about Evelyn, but her answers were never satisfactory. When Megan realized her father wasn't going to back down, she finally decided to tell him the truth. She claimed Ethan was refusing to bring Evelyn back. That was the breaking point. Tommy knew something wasn't right, so he contacted the authorities. Once police got involved, they quickly came to the conclusion that no one had seen Evelyn since December 26, 2019. As soon as authorities issued an Amber Alert for Evelyn, the media picked up the case and it began to gain traction.
Breaking news, authorities have found remains believed to belong to missing East Tennessee toddler Evelyn Mae Boswell.
People began asking questions, searching for answers, and making countless speculations. Of all the questions being asked, one stood out the most. Why had no one reported Evelyn missing for nearly 2 months? How does a 15-month-old child vanish from her own family without anyone noticing? While some social media users fixated on the unanswered questions, others took matters into their own hands. It didn't take long for them to track down Megan's Facebook page, but there was something odd. She wasn't using her real last name, Boswell. Instead, she had changed it to Wood, her boyfriend's surname. From there, the internet detectives dug deeper, and it didn't take long for them to find Hunter Wood's business and personal Facebook accounts. Almost immediately, suspicion turned toward him. People were convinced he knew more than he was letting on, and the accusations started flying. Hunter was bombarded with messages, questions, accusations, and even threats. And if there's one thing we all know about the internet, it's that once people latch on to something, they don't let go. The harassment got so intense that Hunter decided there was only one way to clear his name. He had to go on the record and set things straight. Now this is where the story takes a shocking turn.
As the interview went on, did you have doubts or question what Megan was telling you about Evelyn?
First, Hunter stated that his relationship with Megan wasn't that serious. According to him, they were in an on-again, off-again type of relationship. Second, Hunter claimed that in the 2 months he had been with Megan, he never met Evelyn. He admitted that he had seen pictures of her but had not met her physically. Megan had also told him that Evelyn was staying with her father. After the interview, Hunter made sure to distance himself from the case by kicking Megan out of his home. As the search for Evelyn continued, the sheriff's department held a press conference to discuss the case. The sheriff mentioned that Megan was cooperating with investigators, but her stories were not totally honest. He noted that they couldn't verify some of the things she had told them.
At this point, most of you are aware that we've received a number of conflicting, inaccurate statements from the mother.
Despite the challenges they were faced with, authorities finally pieced together a more accurate timeline. According to their findings, Evelyn had actually been last seen on December 10th by a babysitter, not on the 26th, as they had initially been led to believe. This meant that it had been well over 2 months since little Evelyn was last seen. By the end of the press conference, the authorities announced that they had gotten a lead on a gray 2007 BMW, which they believed had something to do with Evelyn's disappearance. They urged the public to be on the lookout for the car, as it was a crucial part of the investigation. While detectives were busy searching for her daughter, Megan decided to speak to the press. She told reporters that the reason she hadn't reported Evelyn missing was that she knew who had taken her, but she was afraid they would run off with the child if she said anything. Just like that, Megan went from claiming Evelyn was with her father to blaming some unidentified mystery person for holding her daughter hostage. It's possible that Megan thought her story sounded convincing, but to the public, it only raised more red flags. What kind of mother stays silent about her daughter's abduction for over 2 months? And if she really knew who had taken Evelyn, why hadn't she told the police?
Evelyn went missing in and around sometime in December. It was reported February the 18th. So we're already behind the 8 ball, which is within itself frustrating.
Aside from Megan's incredibly unbelievable story, people couldn't help but notice how vague her answers were throughout the interview. She dodged questions, gave little detail, and showed almost no emotion. For a mother whose child was missing, her reaction was quite strange. The investigators who were chasing down the lead on the 2007 BMW found the car in a different state the day after the BOLO was announced. They arrested the 2 people who had been driving the vehicle, and the public was surprised to hear that the people arrested were Angela Boswell, Megan's mother, and her boyfriend William McLeod.
Both were charged with theft over $2,500.
At first, people believed that Angela and William were the people Megan was claiming had taken her daughter. But that was not the case. Angela and William claimed they had not seen the child, and they had no idea why Megan would try to connect them to the disappearance of Evelyn. However, the BMW they were driving did have a connection to the case. It was revealed that the car belonged to Hunter Wood's family, Megan's boyfriend at the time, and had been reported stolen on February 20th. So why was Megan's mother driving her daughter's boyfriend's stolen family car in a completely different state? Upon further investigation, authorities found out that the Wood family were actually planning to sell the car to Megan. However, they were still discussing the details, and Megan had not paid the money yet. According to an affidavit, Hunter had taken the car to Megan for a test drive as part of the sale process, but Angela and her boyfriend stole the car and ran off. Here comes another twist in the case. Angela and William told investigators a completely different story. Angela stated that they didn't steal the car and that Hunter had given it to her as a gift. This version of the story was backed up by Angela's father, Evelyn's great-grandfather, who claimed to have witnessed Hunter giving his daughter the car. Angela's father also claimed that Hunter and Megan had been visiting Angela at his house in the past few weeks. This new information raised an unsettling question. If Megan was insisting that her mother had taken Evelyn, Why would she be willingly spending time with the person she claimed had kidnapped her daughter? At this point, it was clear that the case was drowning in lies, and no one could be trusted. The Sheriff's Department, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, TBI, and the FBI had joined forces to untangle the mess Megan was creating. But Megan wasn't done lying. Far from it. On February 24th, she sat down for yet another media interview. And once again, she had a brand new story. This time, she claimed that her mother, Angela, hadn't just taken Evelyn, she had given her away. According to Megan, Angela had been babysitting Evelyn when she suddenly decided it was in the baby's best interest to hand her over to some unidentified people living in a silver camper.
What do you think happened?
I don't know. She's up in Virginia. Somebody that mom knows that she used to like stay up there or something.
Why would she take her from me and not give her back?
I don't know.
The said people were living on a campground in a city in the neighboring state of Virginia. Megan stated that she had given the TBI this information, and if they didn't act upon it soon, she was willing to go there by herself to get her daughter. If Megan had known where her daughter was all this time, why hadn't she gone there sooner? And why was she suddenly ready to now? To explain this, Megan claimed that her mother had threatened her, which is why she stayed quiet and avoided going to the authorities for so long. The next day, Megan took her charade to the next level. She showed up at the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office and decided to give another interview. Standing right in front of the office for the interview, she stated that she was there to take a polygraph test. However, she said the authorities refused to administer the test because she was pregnant and that it went against their polygraph policy.
Megan Boswell, the mother of Evelyn, tells us she is pregnant again. She said she was unable to take a polygraph test.
Before anyone could even process Megan's latest claims, the sheriff's office shut them down. The sheriff made it clear that Megan had never been scheduled for a polygraph test. In fact, the department didn't even have the equipment needed to conduct one. By now, investigators had had enough. They arrested Megan on charges of false reporting, hoping it would finally force the truth out of her.
1 week after her daughter was reported missing, Megan Boswell was arrested on one count of giving false information to authorities.
Once in custody, Megan changed her story yet again. But this time, even though she was still lying, what she said led to a major breakthrough. She told investigators that one morning, she woke up and found Evelyn dead. She claimed that Evelyn had slept in the same bed as herself and Hunter, and so she believed that one of them must have rolled over the baby and smothered her in her sleep. Given Megan's history of lies, it was difficult for the authorities to believe this story. But things took a surprising turn about a week after she was arrested. Tommy Sr. reached out to the authorities on March 6th and requested that they come search a particular building on the Boswell compound. The building Tommy was pointing investigators towards was Megan's old playhouse. While searching the playhouse, the officers came across a white garbage can filled with garbage bags. A look inside that garbage can would reveal the answer to the one question everyone had been asking for weeks. At the bottom of the garbage can, officers were horrified to find the decomposing body of a child wrapped in aluminum foil and placed face down in a garbage bag. The body was later identified as 15-month-old Evelyn Boswell. An autopsy carried out on the body revealed that Evelyn died of asphyxiation.
During the search, investigators discovered human remains believed to be those of a 15-month-old girl.
In August 2020, a grand jury indicted Megan Boswell on 19 charges, including first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, aggravated child neglect, tampering with evidence, and making false reports. She pleaded not guilty, and her trial was initially set for February 2023. However, after multiple delays, the trial finally began in February 2025. Within the first few days, one of Megan's biggest lies was exposed. Ethan Perry was not Evelyn's biological father. The trial lasted a week, and it ended with the jury finding Megan guilty on all charges. She was eventually sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole.
Megan Boswell should face a life sentence with the possibility of parole.
Do you think Megan's sentence fits the crime? Could the Boswell family have done more to protect Evelyn? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you want to see more cases like this, check out the next video below.